I'll actually link that video in the description of this video so you guys can see what I'm on about. It's absolutely ridiculous. All right, so we left off here. So I'll go to the next one. So combining, activities combining C, A, and S. Is that the way you can do things? You absolutely can do things. Yes, it's encouraged. Woo! Encourage. Yeah, come on. Come on, you can do it. Yep. That's encouragement. Okay, but no double hours for the same thing. I'm going to give an example of this, what I'm talking about. For instance, let's say you are in cheer. Yay! I'm going to get some pom-poms. Right now I'm going to shake pom-poms above my head. Anyway, so let's say you're in cheer, or let's say you're in dance team. I've never been in dance team, despite my figure. That's hard to believe. Anyway, so okay, so let's say dance. You take dance or you take cheer. There's two elements of it. It's a very physical thing to do. You know, cheer and dance are very physical, right? So you have physical activity. But there's also a very creative element to it. There's choreographing. So let's say you're going to choreograph a new dance routine or something like that. You spend time developing and stuff like that. And of course it's activity and stuff, but there's a choreographing aspect to it. And so some of it is choreographing and some of it is activity. And let's say the whole thing takes you 25 hours or something like that. A reasonable thing would be like maybe 7 or 8 hours of choreographing and maybe 15, 20 hours of the other, not 25 hours of each. And this is from a case-to-case basis. I mean, there's not a rule book that says exactly what everything is. It's a case-by-case basis, but that's kind of the idea. So, but there's lots of things that are double, like student saving salmon, it's activity and it's service. You're doing stuff to save salmon, but you walk around, you move stuff, and you build stuff, and it's a physical activity sort of thing. There's a lot of stuff like that. Or for instance, like if you were going to, coach peewees for soccer, be a soccer coach for peewees. You run around and kick the ball with them. There's activity in there. It's also a service. So you get the idea. It can be done. Okay. What you will need for your activities? You will need a supervisor. Who is a supervisor? What is a supervisor? A supervisor is somebody who does these things. Okay. Monitors and evaluates your activity, confirms that you did it. There's no grade on it. And then CAS is not graded at all. But it's required for the diploma, like I said. Anyway, supervisor. Now, a supervisor needs to be a person that is not your friend. It can't be your buddy. It can't be your parents, your family. And the reason for this is it creates conflict of interest. I mean, would your buddy say, no, you failed CAS, you didn't do it? No, they wouldn't. And as a matter of fact, that would be a problem. So if you didn't do it. And so it has to be somebody. Generally, the supervisor is a no-brainer. For instance, if you're helping one of the teachers develop online stuff, well, the teacher will be your supervisor. If you're volunteering over at Swedish Hospital, the volunteer coordinator, who happens to be named Reagan Fisher, whom I've never met, but anyway, the volunteer coordinator will be the supervisor. If you volunteer at Edmonds Food Bank, the volunteer coordinator will be that person. It's generally, if you're doing any sort of like sports stuff, your coach will be your supervisor. Now, there's a lot of things because of COVID, I've had to like kind of stretch out what I do as a supervisor. Like normally I want to have jogging. I don't know if somebody's actually jogging. So, I've had people upload, the logs from their apps and stuff like that to see that they've done the jogging, and, that kind of stuff. So you need a supervisor. I will reject every single activity entered if there's no supervisor given, because I have no way of confirming it. So don't even enter an activity without first having a supervisor. It will just be rejected. Okay, so it's important. It's a very, very important component of this. Anyway, so that's the idea. So if you have a problem finding a supervisor for something, ask me. I'll give you my email and stuff later in this presentation. Okay. What do I do? Your coordinator. I motivate you with an electric cattle prod. I monitor your activity. I hold periodic meetings. During these meetings, we will go over what you have done and what your goals are. There is my email address, Stuart Ann, A-N, at edmonds.wednet.edu. Okay? There, don't put Stuart A. There used to be another Stuart A. And if you send it to Stuart A, it goes into like some cyberspace void somewhere, a black hole on the other side of the universe. Somebody's getting a lot of emails. Aliens will attack us because of it. Anyway, my telephone extension is 6169. I sit in, I mean, we're not in school yet, I mean now, but I sit in a little office C200B. It's in the C. I got my own office this year. Yay, tricked it out with cool lights and cool posters. Anyway, so that's me. Anyway, so I mentioned in a mail the other day that we will have Zoom meetings very, very soon with smaller groups so I can discuss things with you and have your question answered. So anyway, so I'm going to get to that in a second. Requirement for CAS completion, 50 hours of C, A, and S each. You have to use the manageback system. There's no way you will pass CAS. Absolutely, literally zero way for you to pass CAS without using manageback. So you have to enter your stuff on there. It pretty much does everything. When you become familiar with CAS, you'll see it's a very, very excellent system. And CAS actually started, it's a multi-million-dollar company now, not CAS, but manageback actually started as a CAS project from IB students. Quite fascinating. They developed this little thing to be able to help their teachers, and turned out to be a multi-million-dollar company, so used all over the world. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, okay. A collaborative longer-term project. The next slide will talk about the project. And you have to go to the scheduled meetings. There's not many of them, but you do need to be at them when you have them. Okay? Manageback. There's the thing. I'm going to talk about Manageback another day. We're going to go over it with how to enter activities and stuff like that. This is where I will communicate with you. I send all my messages through Manageback. In fact, you've already got some. So I send them to you through Manageback. You need to read them. This is a truth. I don't write emails because I have nothing better to do. If I'm writing an email to you, then it's because I want you to read it. You need to read the emails. And this is even more important in this like silly COVID world that we live in, because we don't have the ability to have any face-to-face contact, any random sort of I see you in the hallway or you see me in the hallway and you're like, Mr. Stewart, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. We use real words though. But you see what I mean? It's impossible to have any communication with one another without this type of stuff. So you have to read your emails. That's not just for me, it's for all your teachers. It's important. And especially also Mr. Wellington, the new IB coordinator, you gotta read his stuff. Okay, anyway, so currently no way to pass CAS without it. You'll write your reflections in there, register your hours, register your activities, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to get into that right now because I'm not showing you how to do it right now. But you'll get it soon. Okay? And then creativity activity service. This I already put up earlier. I don't know why I have it twice. Probably because I wanted to target. Look at that. There's a target. I hit it 3 times. But anyway, so that's what you see there. Same thing, 50 hours of each. Okay? Now, CAS project. I thought it was the next slide, but it wasn't. It was this slide. Anyway, as they say in Sweden, those who wait for something good never wait too long. Oops. So, a CAS project. It's a required part of the IBO by CAS. It's required. It's required. You have to do a CAS project if you want to pass. It's collaborative. You must work. None of these are optional. These are you must sort of terms or conditions of the project. You must work with at least one other full IB student in the school, another school, doesn't matter, full IB student. It's going to be easier in this school though. The project must include at least 2 of the 3 aspects of CAS, like for instance, service, creativity, and action, or action and service, or creativity and service, or whatever the case is, like that, one of those. And it must be of longer duration. It needs to be 35 hours long, at least. Okay? And it needs to be done over a longer period of time. You can't just all cram it into the last 2 days. It has to be like, it's a project. It's like something you start and you follow through with, and you do and you complete. It's a project. Project, just, you could call it a project from 2 days, but still, that's not how CAS works. It needs to be over a longer period of time. Okay? So what are the kinds of things that could be a CAS project? Well, like for instance, I mentioned a couple of them before. Let's say you were coaching Pee-wees Well, you're doing a service and you're doing activity. That could work as a CAS project if you're doing it with a buddy, another full IB student. How about something like hiking calendars? Okay. You could do hiking, and you can make calendars as gifts, give them as birthday gifts, or Christmas gifts, or Ramadan gifts, or Hanukkah gifts, or Chinese New Year gifts, or any sort of gifts you want. And I don't mean just some crappy calendar that but a nice one. You print it out and you make it glossy paper and get proper calendar paper. It'd be cool. Nobody's ever done that around here, but it'd be kind of a fun one with your own hiking thing. So you have creativity and you have action. So there's a bunch of different stuff that you can do. Stuff like that. Students Saving Salmon, I've mentioned several times, is a project which is going on. There's other projects here that you could hop on. Ask me if you don't know. I'll give you some suggestions. Okay? So anyway, what you need to do now is log on and get acquainted with manageback. Important first step. Decide upon activities and get them approved by me. They go up for approval. Fill out all the information on them. I'll talk more about that later. I don't want to talk about manageback right now. I just want to do these videos about general information. And then begin doing your activities. Reflect upon them every couple weeks. Now, some activities need more reflections than others. There's no real rule book for it. I mean, if you go down and you do Spooky Street, down here in Edmonds, and you're there for 2 hours and you're giving out candy to kids, and how much do you need to reflect upon? I gave candy for kids. That was fun. But if you're going to do a longer thing, like your entire season of football or something like that, or an entire season of, cheer or band or whatever the case is. Speaking of which, I forgot to mention earlier, band. If you're in band, like jazz band or whatever, you're getting a ton of creative hours practice. All that kind of stuff is all creative. Anyway, so if you're in, if you're practicing for some big band competition or something like that, over the course of time and you're improving, reflect upon things every once in a while. Longer things need more reflection, shorter things don't. You can also put evidence in there, like if you're going to go on hikes or something. I'll supervise hikes. You got to be honest with the hours. I hike myself a fair amount, and I know the trails. And I've had people, I don't know if you know what Big Ice Caves is, but it's like 3/4 of a mile or something. I've had people try to get 8 hours off of that. I'm like, what, did you pull yourself forward by your teeth? I was like, to be honest. But anyway, so I'll do that, but you need to put like pictures of your hike up and stuff like that. We'll talk about more of that later, but so those are the kind of things. So think about a CAS project and run your ideas past me. And what about COVID? Okay, COVID and CAS. Well, you got, obviously, safety is a primary concern, very, very obviously. Masks, social distancing, wash your hands, that type of stuff. Consider at-risk people in your proximity. Okay, you're young, healthy, and likely, if you were to get COVID, you're not going to get that sick. That seems to be the pattern. Doesn't mean you won't, but there's a likelihood that you wouldn't. But that doesn't mean that you won't pass it to your grandmother who will die, or your a friend's dad who has diabetes and will die. That doesn't mean they won't pass it on. You have to keep that in mind. So it's your responsibility, it's my responsibility, everybody's responsibility to have, social, consciousness and do the things that we're supposed to do. It's our duty to others to help protect people from this disease. So, do that kind of stuff. Anyway, CAS and projects, yes, you still need projects. You might have to rethink it a little bit, okay? Because it's harder to do organize big things with people. Anyway, lower demands, nope, same demands. 50-50-50. You do have 2 years to do this, and you still need to do CAS projects, so they're the same. And meetings, I'll talk more about meetings later. I don't really need to go over it on this slide. This is a presentation I usually do with people. Anyway, so questions and ideas. Now, normally I would have question time, and people are like, ooh, 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 ooh. Okay? That's kind of hard to do right now, because the chairs are quiet, the camera is quiet, the spotlight is quiet. And so what I want you guys to do is, after you watch this video, write down your questions. If you have some, write them down on a piece of paper. By all means, put them in the comments section of this video if you like, but write them down on a piece of paper so when we have our meetings you can ask them, because you won't remember. You'll be like, oh, I have this question, but I don't know. Write them down. You will have questions. You do have questions, absolutely. everybody always has questions. So write them down now on a piece of paper, and then when we have our meetings, you can ask me. Or write them down in the video, and I can see. Okay, but anyway, thank you. And I'll have a little bit of outro music, because it's completely corny and kind of funny. It gets really good. This is a good part too.